I like to tell everyone that I barely made it with great parents. I had great guidance, great people in my life to mentor me, to help me out, and I still kind of towed the line from time to time. Could you imagine if you had no guidance, or even worse, bad guidance? It's just a recipe for disaster.
You just heard Chris Shipp. Chris is born and raised in Bakersfield, California, and he and his partner Jesse started the moving company Smooth Move 11 years ago, which then became Mentors Moving and Storage. Chris coached football at Garces Highschool for 9 years, and he has an absolute hunger for knowledge in all things leadership, finance, and business development. In today's show, we discuss Mentors Moving and Storage and the relationship with the Dream Center. Later in the show, we talk about Chris's hobby of personal finance and learning about all things money. And lastly, be sure to stay tuned to hear about Chris's favorite book and why it would be meaningful for you.
Welcome back to the Our 2 Cents podcast, the show where your local professionals sit down with an array of guests to hear their story and impart some wisdom for both business and life-improving skills. This is your place to hear business and community leaders discuss relevant topics that matter to you.
And welcome to the show today. My name is John Duffield. I'm a local CPA, and I'm excited for our conversation today. I've got Chris Shipp in from Mentors Moving and Storage. Before we get into today's episode, I would like to encourage our followers to listen to last week's episode. It was our first ever host roundtable discussion. All 6 hosts sat together and discussed upcoming news in our respective fields. Please listen to it as soon as possible, since there's a lot of time-sensitive information. Chris, we are happy to have you joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, John. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we were talking about when we got started about it being Monday, and I told you it's not my favorite day of the week, and you said that it is your favorite day of the week, and why is that?
I love Mondays. It's a good time to get the week started out right. You know, a lot of people let the week drag them around and let their life kind of drag them around, and when you take focus and take charge of your life, Mondays are actually great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You know what? I love your attitude about that. So I want to talk about a couple of different things today. I want to talk about Dream Center, which I know that Mentors Moving and Storage is really active with. And then, of course, I do want to talk about Mentors Moving and Storage. Tell us about Dream Center and how Mentors Moving and Storage became affiliated with that.
So whenever we're looking to partner with someone in the city when it comes to foster youth, an organization, Dream Center popped up. I actually coached one of the higher ups in the organization's son in football at Garces Highschool. So it immediately came up, and we started communicating with them, and I just love what they stood for. I went by, toured their facility, had a couple of my employees tour their facility as well, and just loved what they did, loved the impact that they made, loved their passion as well as ours in the community, helping out the aged out foster youth. And just wanted to partner and wanted to help them out with what they do. They help out over 700 kids a year with services, and that could be counseling, that could be donation with clothes, that could be donation with food, housing, pretty much any service that these aged out foster youth or the foster youth in general need, they provide for them. And like I said, 700 kids a year, they make an impact in their life. That's quite astounding.
Yeah, it really is. And I know Mentors had some involvement with foster youth kind of prior to Dream Center, but Dream Center's now kind of become your official beneficiary, if you will, for your efforts from that perspective, right? So tell me about, I know, Chris, that you've always had this huge passion about foster youth and the kids of foster kids in the city of Bakersfield. How'd that come about?
Well, we've always wanted to give back to the community. My business partner, Jesse, and I were born here. We love Bakersfield, unlike some people think that, Bakersfield isn't the most glamorous city, and that's okay. But it's done so much for my life. It's had such an impact on my life. And for our business, we've been in business for quite some time now in the community, and they've done so much to support us and to support my family. It's how I support my family. So this community has supported my family. So we wanted to give back, and we're looking at ways to giving back. And, we've done charity donations and things like that, but that never really hit home with us until one day we went to Covenant Coffee here in town as well, who mentors aged out foster youth and helping the foster youth.
Randy Martin, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we read the back of their label, and it kind of hit Jesse and I, and we started doing some research, and we didn't realize that there was the type of need of help that these aged out foster youth, they need. They need a ton of help.
Yeah, they do, Chris. And so talk about aged out foster youth, because I got to tell you, I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't fully grasp what that meant until I heard you say it one time. So for our listeners, explain that and tell us kind of what happens to those foster youth.
So let's say you're a foster kid, right? And you're going through high school. You're 16 years old. You're going to high school. You have a foster family. Well, when you transition, and if that foster family, can't support you anymore or doesn't have the means to support you, you go to the foster facility. And as soon as you turn 18 years old, which is like the Dream Center, as soon as you turn 18 years old and you graduate high school, you age out. So that means you get a 30-day notice, so to speak.
Wow.
So these kids, young adults, they get a 30-day notice and they have to go out on their own. They're given a twin mattress and most of the time a trash bag that holds their personal belongings. And they do get help with housing, lower rent. They still have to pay rent, but it is a lower level rent. But still, they have a twin mattress, a trash bag, no guidance, no help, nobody there for them. Actually, some statistics that I brought over, 50% of aged out foster youth end up homeless by the time that they're 24 years old. Yeah. 50%. That one right there caught me, kind of hit me upside the head, right? Homeless. When you think of homeless, it's a pretty bad situation. And I like to tell everyone that I barely made it with great parents, right?
Sure.
I had great parents, great guidance, great people in my life to mentor me, to help me out. And I still kind of towed the line from time to time.
Sure.
Could you imagine if you had no guidance or even worse, bad guidance?
Yeah.
It's just a recipe for disaster. Another statistic that hit me really hard is 60% of males end up incarcerated by the time they're 24 as well.
Wow.
Yeah,
just incredible. And I got to tell you, you're right. Thinking about it, coming from parents that actually cared about what happened to me,
right?
And so all of a sudden you're going along in a foster home, and now all of a sudden you're 18, and it's kind of like, hey, good luck.
Yeah,
you're on your own. And so, you have any idea what percentage of those kids ends up aging out and leaving that foster home that they're in? Is that a fairly large percentage of those kids that happens to?
By the time it's 24, it's 100%. Once you're foster care, if your foster parent does not adopt you or doesn't want to continue, helping you out, by the time they're 24, they don't receive any more stipends from the government. They don't receive any more payments to foster you. So the benefit for them doing it, other than just out of the kindness of their heart and their love for that child, is gone. So they receive no monetary benefit after that. So a lot just
it's crazy. It's crazy. And I mean, when you sit and say that 50% of those aged out end up homeless by 24, right? And so you start thinking about the number of foster kids that go through our system, and then all of a sudden you got that 50% number, and then we wonder why we have a homeless problem, right? I mean, this is obviously just a percentage of that, but it's a percentage nonetheless.
It's a big percentage, and I feel like it's one of the ones, that's something, we have a homeless crisis on our hands,
right?
And everyone's wanting to combat that with, drug programs or, mental health programs and things like that, which are all great. But I think they're barking up the wrong tree, so to speak.
Yeah, to some extent.
To some extent. I think if we focus on our children, on the future generation, and focus on helping them out more, I believe that we could not solve the homeless crisis, but I think we could put a huge dent in it.
Sure, make a big impact on it, right?
Exactly.
Right. So Dream Center has obviously caught your guys' attention. I know I attended an event that had a fundraiser for Dream Center that you guys did recently. And then I know you've been trying to, integrate some of those kids with Mentors Moving and Storage. But let's go back a little bit farther. And if you've got things you can tell us about foster kids and Dream Center, let's work that into it. So let's talk about Mentors Moving and Storage, or what became Mentors Moving and Storage, because you and Jesse started business a long time ago,
right? And
you started with Smooth Move. Tell us about that, how you guys ended up in the moving business, and then how you got here where you are today.
Right. So kind of a long story of how it all came out, but Jesse and I always wanted to be in business for ourselves. We always wanted to be entrepreneurs.
Right.
We just never really figured out what it was yet. We were still young. I think we were 24 at the time. And actually, our friend JR moved us, the Smooth Move, and moved us into one of our houses that we lived in together, and he ended up moving in next door.
Okay.
And he was going through some growing pains in the business. The moving industry is a tough business. It's not easy. There's a lot of employees. You got a lot of employees that you have to deal with. You got customers who sometimes can be great, sometimes not so great.
Sure.
So he wanted to sell the company.
Okay.
And he sold it to us.
Okay.
And that's how we started. It was Jesse and I and a beat up old U-Haul truck running it out of our house. We got our business license from, for Kern County, and we thought that we were licensed. 3 months down the road, we realized that you really had to have a state license authority.
Okay.
Didn't know that.
I didn't know that. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
So a lot of growing pains. The first year we rented out of our house, just Jesse and I doing all the moves. We'd show up. We only had one truck, personal vehicle, to split between the two of us as well. So sometimes you'd have to take the moving truck grocery shopping or things like that if the other person was using the truck. It was
right.
It was a great story looking back on it. But we just kept doing great for our customers, doing a good job, and doing great for the community.
Yeah. So you guys started out just the two of you, and you were doing every move at the time.
Yes, we're doing every move. We're doing every estimate. We would show up dirty, sweaty, 9 a.m. to do an in-home estimate at someone's house because that's when we got done with the move. Prior to that,
right?
Answering the phone, carrying sofas in the house. It was a struggle, but I wouldn't change it for anything.
Yeah,
right? If it was easy, it wouldn't mean as much as it does today.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So we struggled through, and then we grew and grew, and then eventually, when we started expanding to different locations, such as Phoenix, Arizona, we realized that we needed to trademark the name Smooth Move, and someone else had it trademarked. So we had to pivot. And then that's when Covenant Coffee happened, and that's when Mentors happened. And honestly, it was the best thing to ever happen in our business. It relit the fire for Jesse and I, because business was fun. It was good. We grew to a certain point. It did well for us. But then once again, moving isn't the most glamorous business, right? It's
sure.
Not like,
I have to stop and tell you this, though, and I don't know how many times I've been the beneficiary of listening to you speak and then being in your facility. And I got to tell you, you're one of those entrepreneurs that makes it look exciting. You honestly do. You definitely have a passion about you, and you have a passion for things like Dream Center that I think is part of that fire that keeps you rolling. But you definitely can tell that you like what you do and you're excited about it, and it's really good. So whatever it's happened for you, I'm sure it's a lot of hard work, but it looks like it's blessed you from that perspective. So
right. Well, the mentorship is what really lit the fire, to be honest. Like before that, it was obviously money and profit driven. You wanted to make a lot of money because you wanted to provide for your family and you wanted to give back to the community and do things like that. And then when this mentorship idea happened, it really relit the fire for Jesse and I. What better way to pay it forward than to invest into the future generation that's going to be leading our country, our community, everything like that. It's the best way to give back and to make a ripple that lasts throughout the ages.
Sure. And listen, and I appreciate you saying that. I know that I've been around, business for a long time. This is my 36th year in business, by the way. And I've watched clients and myself have written checks to, local charitable organizations. And that's what a lot of us are guilty of, is just writing checks. But maybe not getting as involved as you have from the, to the extent that you have. So that personal passion and that fire is both, it's helped the business, as well as it's helped the, the youth of the community. So that's Smooth Move at the time, and then that name was trademarked, right? And then you said, hey, we've got to pivot. Right. And that's when you guys made the decision to become Mentors Moving and Storage at that time.
Exactly. I was actually in the hospital with my pregnant wife having my third baby. Okay. And had walked out the door to have a meeting with our business coach on what we should do, and made the decision right there in a matter of 30 minutes, went back in and had my son. Well, my wife had my son, but I'll never forget that.
Yeah. And so the name Mentors was the idea behind that was to be, that process of mentoring kids like the foster kids.
Yeah, mentoring aged out foster youth. There's a couple different things with it, but everybody needs a mentor in your life. And I learned that early on, that find someone who's doing what you want to do, living the way you want to live, and grab and hold on. Right. And copy them.
Copy that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Do the best.
Emulate that to the extent that you can, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, there's absolutely no doubt about it. So tell us about what Mentors Moving and Storage is today. And obviously, I'm assuming you've got some foster youth that are in there with you today that work in your program. So tell us about the company today.
Right. We're working with about 8 right now, I believe, maybe 11 at the if you include the other locations. So when we first started this and we first teamed up with the Dream Center, I was saving millions of kids' lives, right? I was fired up. I was on fire. And Jamie over at Dream Center, she's like, Chris, listen, it's probably not going to be as good as you think it is. I was like, nah, you don't understand, Jamie. She's like, okay. Yeah, you're the one that doesn't understand. So the turnover has been pretty high. We've had a lot of kids come in, a lot of kids leave. We're not going to sacrifice the integrity of our business to try to help out. I'm still sending these young kids into people's homes. My customers are my number one priority.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm not going to, like I said, jeopardize the integrity integrity of the business. So if someone's doing something that we don't agree with, that doesn't follow company policy, whether you're a foster youth or not, you have to be terminated.
Yeah,
it's just the way it is.
Yeah, you've got to go fly somewhere else. Right?
Exactly. So, but we do try to help. We do give them the benefit of the doubt. We do give them second chances and things like that. But it's been great. You know, we have a couple that's been with us for 2 years now.
Yeah. Chris, I was going to say, moving's not for everybody, right? Right. If it was, we'd move our own houses, right? You wouldn't have a business opportunity, right?
No, so, it's hard work. It really is hard work. So a lot of them don't stay. But while they're there, we let them know that even if they want to come back, we have a director of mentorship within our facility, Rini, who handles everyone who sits down with, I hate to use the word kids, right? Young adults within our facility, and sits down with them monthly to make sure that they're staying on path with their goals, staying on track with their goal setting and goals, and making sure that they're doing the steps to achieve those goals. And also at any time, she's there to talk to them, you know, as sort of a second counselor.
Sure.
If they need someone to talk to about anything, and I'm always available as well if they need to talk to anyone.
Yeah, you know, that profession, by the way, moving, you know, is one of those, almost what I call those stay in school jobs, right? For some of those kids. And you know, it's not something that I would look at one of the kids that's coming out, you know, of a foster home that would come to work for Mentors Moving and Storage and necessarily would say, hey, this is what I want to be doing when I'm 60 years old, right? But candidly, though, what a wonderful way to get started in the working world.
Right.
You know, it is physical labor, hard work, whatever, but then they start to understand the value of that. And they're working for a fantastic organization with you guys that cares about their future and what's happening to them. And then, you know, you can see those people develop and then, you know, go off to something else at some point.
That's what Jesse and I said from the very beginning. Look, we hope that all these young adults or kids that come and work for us, we hope that they leave. We hope that they go find a better job. We hope that they go find something better they'll provide for their family. And if they want to stick around, to be honest, transportation right now and being a Class A long haul driver, it pays pretty good money.
Yeah, I've seen that recently. It looks like a pretty good compensation program for some of those guys.
Exactly. There's a huge shortage, so it does pay very well. And also, you know, we're open to being business partners with anyone that wants to go start their own company somewhere else as well, and has that passion of entrepreneurship.
Sure.
We could help guide them, and we could help partner with them and help them open up a location.
Yep. Who's Mentors Moving and Storage? Who's their best customer? Who do you guys, you know, what's your target market? Who do you like to serve? What services do you provide? And give me the shameless plug on Mentors Moving and Storage.
I honestly hate talking about moving, and I hate talking about our company. I love talking about what we do with the foster youth. But as far as our best customer right now, anyone moving out of California.
Right.
There's such a shortage.
No shortage of that.
Well, there's a shortage in assets.
Yeah,
so
sure.
That's what's happening. There's a huge bottleneck right now. A lot of people can't even rent a truck to move themselves out of the state of California. You know, all the stickers that U-Haul literally has no trucks. You can't rent one. So the best customer would be someone that's moving out of state right now, because we use all of our resources. We've ramped up. We've been planning for this since 2020. We knew that there was going to be kind of a mass exodus in California with the increase in prices and everything going up, and it being so hard to live. And, you know, the baby boomer generation getting older and wanting to retire. It's hard to retire in California.
Sure.
It's a lot easier to retire somewhere else. You know, Tennessee.
Lower cost of living.
Lower cost of living.
Yep.
So that would be a great customer. But as far as services we provide any service that you need as far as come to moving, storage, packing, loading or unloading your own truck if you need it, loading or unloading pods, anything like that. Commercial moving, great customers. Now when it comes to moving, I love commercial moving. I love moving businesses. It's getting, 20, sometimes 30 guys in an office and moving them in 2 or 3 days, 400 employees. That's fun. It takes a lot of work, a lot of planning.
A lot of logistics.
Logistics. I love moving offices. So anybody that has a business that is looking to move their office, we do it all the time. We've handled 400, 500 employee office moves multiple different times. So we're fully equipped to handle those.
I know that you guys actually do storage on site, right? If somebody had to have long-term storage, when is somebody using that process or that service that you guys, who's using that? A
lot of people who are selling homes right now. It's easy to sell a home. It's not so easy to buy a home. Right. So the market's at all-time high. Everyone knows that. So you're trying to get as much bang for your buck out of your home right now. And maybe you want to rent for a year or two to wait for the market to cool off, in your opinion. If you think it's going to cool off and you want to wait a year or two to see if it's going to cool off and your money could go further, that's a perfect customer. Also, anyone that's living in a smaller home that has a bunch of clutter in their garage, would love to store your holiday decorations, right? Store all your Christmas decorations.
Right.
I'm sure that a lot of guys are kicking around in their garage, mad at their wife for having 82 boxes of Christmas decorations, 4 Christmas trees, cluttering up their garage space. That's a great customer for us as well.
Yep. It's amazing to me. I have a unit at Daryl's Mini Storage,
Yep.
and I was thinking about it the other day that, I don't even know the last time I was over at that facility, and I don't know why I'm paying to store some of that stuff. And so it's
Daryl is a very wealthy man.
Yeah, but it's crazy what we do. But, there is definitely that need for it. So
Right.
Moving on a little bit, one of our topics today, and I actually got to see you talk about this a little bit, but your hobby of kind of studying economics and finance. Tell us about that, about you and what you've learned and what you like.
So growing up, school wasn't my most favorite of activities that I had to do. I actually really hated it. Sitting in a classroom, a lot of people would call it ADD or whatever it is. I just couldn't stand to sit in a classroom for that long and be quiet and sit still. I like moving around. I like doing things like that. So
Sure.
Now looking back, I enjoy studying, but I enjoy studying how I want to.
Sure.
And finance became a big hobby of mine because the game of life is played with money, right? Like if we're just being honest, winners and losers, so to speak, it's how much money you could accumulate, and whether it's for
that is one measurement that people use, right?
one measurement, because no matter what you do, if you want to do good in your life, it takes money.
Sure.
If you want to spend time with your family, it takes money. If you want to donate to charities and make an impact, it takes money.
Sure.
So, and when I say that the game of life is judged by money, I'm not saying that I want to accumulate as much money as I can so that I could be rich and buy a private island or something.
Right.
It's not that. I actually want to accumulate wealth so that I could give back more and I can make a bigger impact. That's actually one of the biggest passions in mine, is to leave this world a better place than it was when I came into it. And by doing that, you have to make an impact in people's lives. So that's why I want to do that. But anyways, it's being a competitive person. You look in the game of life, and Robert Kiyosaki is actually the one who coined the phrase that the game of life is judged by how much money you have. So it just became a hobby of mine, and I've just dove in as much as I possibly can to learn about currencies, to learn about finance, to learn about markets, to learn about the Argentinian peso that's hyperinflated 4 different times, but for some reason people still buy and use the Argentinian peso when history shows that it's going to go to zero pretty much again, and
Sure.
you're going to lose all your money.
Right.
I don't know. It's just, it's became a hobby of mine, so I really enjoy it.
Yeah, you said you like to learn that. What do you do to learn and kind of absorb that finance and economic information? How do you do that?
So I've joined a couple newsletters of people who I admire and people who kind of share the same type of beliefs as I do when it comes to finances, and talks about the things that I enjoy. So I joined their newsletter. It's like $20. Willie Woo is one of them. Yep. Will Clemente is another one.
Those are Bitcoin guys.
Yeah, those are Bitcoin guys. So you just join their newsletter, and they put out a weekly newsletter, and I think it's $20 to $50 a month, and keep up with that. And then podcasts. I'm a podcast machine. I listen to probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 podcasts a week, depending on how long they are, and just try to absorb as much knowledge as I can.
Yeah, give us the name of some podcasts you like.
I really like the Anthony Pompliano podcast, the Pomp podcast.
Yep.
I really like the Bitcoin Standard podcast. Is really well. Obviously, as you could see, I'm
some belief in Bitcoin.
a little bit.
Right.
And then the Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Amos, and I'm probably butchering his name. That's a real good podcast. Lex Friedman is a great podcast. However, he doesn't really talk about finances, but he talks about a lot of really cool things.
Yeah.
And I love
his lot of deep subjects.
A lot of deep subjects. And I love his demeanor. I love how he interviews and how he handles his guests.
Yeah, somebody else told me about Lex Friedman, and I went to look at it. His podcasts are all long. They're all 2 hours. Yeah, I mean, crazy stuff.
Grind.
Right.
It's a grind. Right. Yeah. And like I said, I've just got turned on to his. So I really, really like his podcast.
Yeah, I'm a big podcast listener as well, and I probably knock out more than you do on a weekly basis. And if I'm, a lot of times I am sitting at my desk,
right.
And so it's not always conducive to be able to try to listen to a podcast and work necessarily the kind of work that I do. But when I can get into some of that where it's, I don't want to say mindless work, but something that I can try to concentrate on a podcast and do the right job at the same time, I'll do that. If I'm driving, I'm always going to have a set of earbuds in my ear and listening to something. So, yeah, I definitely like it.
If I'm driving, I'm listening to a podcast. There's no better time to study, to learn, right? And the more you know, what they say, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah,
So,
well, the thing that's just been fascinating for me is, you think after a number of years, you go, well, oh, I've seen that before. So you start to get some level of confidence that, you know how to handle a life transaction or a business transaction or whatever it happens to be. But, now that I've spent time with podcasts and have listened to so many, I'm like, I don't know a thing. I'm just this little, I'm just this little baby that's just getting started,
Exactly.
right? It's just a big world out there full of so much information.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, it's crazy. And I like that. I have a curious mind, and so I like learning from that perspective. And I don't know how many different podcasts I have. I jump all over the board. Sometimes mine is business or finance things, and then sometimes it's just really off the wall stuff. So
Robert Kiyosaki is also a good podcast, although in my opinion, he's kind of fallen off a little bit in the later years. He's kind of getting a little bit too much into politics, and I think when you get too much into politics, you kind of lose some people.
Sure.
But he's obviously very, very intelligent when it comes to finance, comes to business, anything like that.
Sure.
He has a really good podcast.
Yeah, I mean, he personally has had a ton of success in, book writing, obviously, as an author and speaker, and then his own personal finances. I know he's a big real estate guy and, has had a ton of personal success.
Well, and his education systems. I don't know if you've ever played the Cash Flow board game.
I have not. I've seen it, but I've never played the game.
It's a really, really cool board game. He makes them for kids. He makes the Cash Flow Kids board game, and then he makes like the Cash Flow 202, which goes into options trading and things like that. It's actually a very, very educational board game. I highly recommend anyone to play that game. It'll surprise you how much it'll teach you in regards to investing. And back to it, he's given a lot by giving back and educating the masses on money. Right, on how to treat yourself, because if you're just piled up with credit card debt and everything like that, you're just a slave and you can't get out, and it's a very bad place to be.
Yeah, Chris, and off the subject a little bit, but I was listening to a news comment, and basically the comment was that about 47% of our population has no investable assets whatsoever. And I thought that was really, when I heard that, I thought, man, that seems like that's too high. Like, I mean, obviously there's going to be a segment of our population that doesn't have investable money, but to say that half of us have no investable assets, it just kind of caught me off guard. And then I was reading over the weekend, and I saw an article that basically said that now, last year when kind of COVID was going on, us as consumers had saved quite a bit of money. We were saving a large amount of money, more than we typically had.
Right.
Now that's been on a steady decline, and so now we're getting down to, I think the latest numbers were now down to like a 2.8% savings rate, but headed down to what was an all-time low of 1.5%. And so, this writer's belief is that, we're going to get down to basically our savings are going to be exhausted, and people are going to start hitting their credit cards again for living their daily lives. And so that's pretty unfortunate when we're at that perspective.
Yeah, I heard a statistic that 80% of Americans are 90 days away from bankruptcy if they lost their job or lost their source of income.
Yeah, crazy.
And they rely on one source of income.
That's
you should
crazy.
always have multiple streams of income if you can.
Absolutely. So getting ready to kind of wrap up, is there anything you haven't told us about Dream Center, first of all, or the foster youth program? Anything that you want to add to that? Just anything that's coming up that our listeners should be watching for, or figure out how they could help?
Not that I'm aware of as far as events coming up for them, but I do know that this fall I do plan on having another event either at my facility or somewhere else to raise money for them as well. And I will definitely let you know so that you could plug us
share that information.
Yeah, share that on the information.
Yeah, and again, Dream Center, they're downtown. Tell me that address again if you remember.
Yeah, it's 1801 19th Street. Their phone number is 661-636-4488.
Yeah, that's perfect. No, I appreciate that. If some of our listeners, want to get involved and help from that perspective, that's a fantastic opportunity. Anything you want to leave us with about Mentors Moving and Storage? Anything that we left out there?
Not really. Back to the foster, what you asked if there's anything else I wanted to say is just don't underestimate the impact, no matter how small, that you can make in someone's life. Whether it's, what they say, smile, whether it's smiling at someone, donating some used clothes instead of taking it to Goodwill, take it to the Dream Center, backpacks, things like that. But a little goes a long way with these kids. I was bad about that. I was like, this is just a shirt. I'm just going to throw it away. Why am I going to waste the time to go down there? It's a huge impact. They get a brand new shirt. For them, it's a very nice shirt that they love, that looks really good, and it makes them feel better about themselves. It gives them more confidence.
Sure.
They go to school now. They could get better grades, things like that. So just don't underestimate how much a little act can do for these kids.
Yeah, no, I think that absolutely. Anything about Mentors Moving and Storage?
We're a local moving and storage company. We do a great job for you. We'll get you moved.
If we wanted to get in contact with you, what's the phone number for Mentors, first of all?
661-325-MOVE.
325-MOVE. Good. That's easy. Mm-hmm. And then your Instagram page, what's that?
Mentors Moving and Storage.
Okay. And same thing on Facebook is Mentors Moving and Storage. Good.
Correct.
So one of the things that we always do at the end of our podcast, 3 rapid fire questions. We always mix these up based on who our guest is going to be, but these are perfect for you, by the way. So first one is what's a quote you live by?
So if anyone who knows me, I'm a big quote guy. I have a quote for anything, and people make fun of me about it all the time. I love quotes, but the biggest one for me is how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen that one, right? And that's just, it's just the little things, right? Even those little things. Mm-hmm. What book do we have to read and why?
Once again, I love books, and to pick one is really difficult. But I think if you're looking to make an impact, I think that Developing the Leader Within You by John Maxwell is a great one, because without being a leader, it's going to be very, very hard to achieve what it is you want to achieve.
Sure.
Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And if you can't have influence over people, once again, it's going to be very, very hard for you to be successful.
Yeah, leadership, and when we hear that term leadership, we think, we always, we start thinking about the president of the United States or the CEO of some business or whatever, right. But way more than that, right? I mean, we're the leader in our own homes, right? We're leading our children, we're leading our neighbors, and it's not that we're the christened ones necessarily, but sometimes we're given that task to lead in our own environment. So, and John Maxwell is a fantastic writer, so that would be a great, great book. And then lastly, if you could be remembered for one thing, what would that be?
So back to what I said, I think leaving the world a better place than it was when I got here would be a huge one, although I feel like I've already achieved that with my kids. I feel just the fact that me having my kids and how amazing they are, I feel like the world is already a better place because they're here. Right. So then after that would be creating a legacy that lasts throughout the ages. The movie Troy has always been a big impact on me when he says that no one will ever remember your name. So not doing it for selfish purposes by any means, but just a way to provide something and give something that lasts longer than I do.
Yeah, sure. No, I think that's fantastic. Chris, thank you very much for coming in. I've had the good fortune to listen to you speak a couple of different times, and I just admire, who you are and what you do and what you and Jesse have done with Mentors Moving and Storage. And so it's fantastic. Thank you for coming in today.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it.
You bet.
This show has been brought to you by the Law Office of Kyle Jones, Troy Burton with the Lynn Company, CPA John Duffield, Scott Hansen Real Estate Lender, broker and investor, and Dave Plivlich, President and CEO of the Marcom Group and MarcomBranding.com. You've been listening to the Our 2 Cents podcast. Check out the show notes for links and more information about the show. Also visit our website at our2centspodcast.com or catch us on Instagram at Our 2 Cents Podcasts. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and share with others.